My name is Netsky. I'm here in my studio in Antwerp. It's a little control room in my living room actually, which I'm very lucky with. And today I'm gonna show you how I make my track Rio.
Wherever she goes, I go, we roll, we go, flying over cities down to Rio. It's Rio, love that I feel. Oh, nothing lasts forever, but I'm down for the minute, so just chill.
So the track is a collaboration with Digital Farm Animals, who wrote and sung the vocals. I think we started with the vocal on 126 BPM, so it's like more of a house record with just simple kind of major piano chords in the background. And we kind of switched it all around. We went from a house record into kind of a summary drum and bass record. So it was a really cool learning curve for me. It was a really fun track to make, and yeah, it came together quite easily. I like to start with well, to explain the song a bit. I like to start with the drums a little bit. So the song for me is kind of divided in three sections arrangement wise. There's an intro, which sounds like this. It's a very, very simple kind of harmonic intro with a simple kind of samba-ish clap loop on top of it. And then it goes into another intro basically, but it's a hip hop beat with a vocal, you hear it.
Wherever she goes, I go, we roll, we go, flying over cities down to Rio. It's Rio, love that I feel. Oh, nothing lasts forever, but I'm down for the minute, so just chill. Wherever she goes, I go, we roll, we go, flying over cities down to Rio. It's Rio, love that I feel. Oh, nothing lasts forever, but I'm down for the minute, so just chill.
So basically, I start with those two parts that both 2 times 16 bars, or like whatever tempo you want to look at it, it's 2 chunks of 16 bars. Yeah, with the intro, it was fairly easy. I got this drum loop. The thing is, I never name my tracks in Ableton, so it's so hard to find everything back, but I'll do my best. This was one of the chopped up loops I used for the drums, so it was all a loop. There wasn't much programming for the intro part. That's part of it, so it's kind of a, how do you call it? Like kind of a cinematic kind of drum, or something like that. I chopped it up. The original sample was that very simple chop up job, just re-looping that first kind of bit here, and yeah, fairly simple. What other elements are there? So there's some harmonics. Very simple silent kind of patch. I don't really like to use like presets that much in silent because I use it mostly for pads and like more filtered down, some plugs, some leads. But with this, it's fairly simple, just 8 saw waves, a little bit detuned, and that's it really. Like a little bit of distortion. I bend it a tiny little bit. There's an auto pan, which is like a native Ableton thing to like kind of give it a little bit of a stereo excitement, and I just used the built-in equalizer plugin to use a low pass. Very simple. This just automated on the track. It goes up and down a little bit. A little bit of reverb, but yeah, super simple. There's one kind of extra sound that I use. I think it's a preset in Serum called Bottle Blower, which sounds like this. Very simple kind of one note thing. Don't know what I put it in there, but kind of made the master. So that wasn't really the part I started with when I produced the track. That was just like I used the melody of the chorus of like the drop and kind of wanted to like do a build up with that because the intro sounded a bit too harsh to start with in my eyes. So basically out of the intro the vocal starts not on the 1 but on the 3 before the drop. So
wherever she goes, I go, we roll, we go, flying over cities down to Rio. It's Rio, love that I feel. Oh, nothing lasts forever, but
so with this part I'll talk about the vocal. I didn't do that much processing, to be honest. Like the original vocal was 124 BPM, so it would have sounded like this.
Wherever she goes, I go. We roll, we go.
It's
Flying over
with some
cities
vocals,
down
it's
to
really
Rio.
hard to like kind of transpose them or like put them in a different tempo without losing the quality. And with this, it was fine. It's the magical voice of Digital Farm, and it always works. I've got his Lucky Charm in studio as well. That's his pick he gave me once. I don't know why, but it's my Lucky Charm now in studio. Whenever the pig is looking at me, I know something's going right. So basically, 173 BPM, we sped it up.
Wherever she goes, I go. We roll, we go. Flying over cities down to Rio. It's Rio.
Quality doesn't sound great when you solo it. Obviously, it's not soloed in the track, so it works. And there's distortion on it in some points and stuff. So we kind of play with it, which makes it much easier to kind of transpose or like change tempos on vocals. So yeah, there's that. The chain is very simple. I think it was a dry-ish vocal without all this. No, it wasn't even dry. So this was a recording that we made with effects on it already. But I've added one of my favorite vocal plugins, which is Nectar. Very simple kind of chain. There's a de-esser on there. A lot of de-essing actually. A little bit of EQing. I don't know what I'm doing that here in Nectar and then again in a native plugin. Don't ask me why, but some saturation, a bit of compressing, and a limiter. It's it's even a preset. Hip hop and rap, aggressive rap. So with these kind of plugins, I tend to use presets sometimes and just change all the parameters and kind of for it to work like with the current vocal. But again, very simple kind of chain. Super pushed. I shouldn't really push the volumes like that anyway. But so for the bass line, I used a plugin called Hydra, which I don't really use that much, but I've heard about it on a forum, and I think it's used a lot for like kind of harsh jungle sounding bass lines. There's a couple of really cool presets in there. It might even be a sampler. I'm not sure. But yeah, without the chain behind it, it sounds like this. So kind of bit of a colored kind of sine sub kind of bass sound. So I've put Camel Fat on it, which is one of my favorite plugins. It's such a shame they've discontinued it. It's literally one of my favorite plugins to use to like get some proper distortion and to I love the LFOs in the plugin and stuff. It's pretty cool. But basically, so obviously it sounds a lot dirtier than the original bassline sound, which I really wanted to do. For me, like when you work with a simple bassline and a kind of, it's not a poppy vocal, but yeah, it could be. It's a bit more poppy than vocals I use normally. So I like to kind of fill that up with a more kind of aggressive sound in the background instrumentally, and I think that really works. Like a more poppy vocal and a really dirty bassline sound. That's always a good combination. So with the bassline, again with the aggressive bassline sound, I try to with this I just there's some side chaining, not too much I think. Oh, actually, that's quite a lot. Okay, it's ducking quite a lot actually. I think a good 12 dB or something like that. So I sidechain the bassline sound with the kick that's happening underneath it. I'll show you the kick later, and the snare. Just to have that real pumping kind of trappy hip hop vibe behind it. I think sidechaining is a really good way to like kind of fill that space up, make it sound loud, and to have that pumping sound. So that was important to me. So that bassline with the kick and the snare, or just the kick, I'll show you. If I find the kicks. So it's a very dirty kick. It's not very clean, which is really what I wanted. That it's hip hop. It shouldn't be too clean. So the drums, I've used a very simple kind of 909, I think. I think I pitched down pitched up the hi-hat, the close hi-hat a little bit, like 2 semitones, like you can see here, 2 semitones. That's a snare. Quite a lot of reverb room on there. What else is there? A clap, which I did. I didn't use it in the end, so it's muted, but yeah. So that's the drums. Very simple drums again.
minute, so just chill. Wherever she goes, I go, we roll, we go. Flying over cities down to Rio, it's real. Love that I feel. Oh, nothing lasts forever, but I'm down for the minute, so just
There we
chill.
go. To go from the hip hop bit into the trumpet bit was just one stack of like trumpets on one note, and then it goes into this. So what I'll do, I'll just keep it playing and I'll just go through each single layer and just build it out. I've got no idea what I'm going to select, but so there's a tiny bit of like white noise and silence here, just to have a bit of a rhythm. Don't really know where I used it, but yeah, sometimes it's nice to have that rhythm. Then Superior Drummer, which is a very important drum plugin to me. I mostly just use it for like hi-hats, rides, crashes, sometimes some toms. But it's a very live-sounding, human-sounding kind of drum plugin. I don't really humanize it here, but like normally I like to use the random kind of annotation and just use it so hi-hats don't sound too binary, to like have a little bit of shuffle but not too much. But with this it's quite straightforward. It's every note sounds kind of the same, I think. Another hi-hat sample, just a simpler in Ableton. Again, all of that, not very exciting, but altogether it kind of creates a bit of a live vibe. So here's another Superior Drummer that I've frozen. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you now, but it's just a bit of toms, just no low end whatsoever, just to have that little bit of grit in the top, a little bit. Very like high pitched kind of bass drum, no sub frequencies, everything under 85 is gone. What else is there? I'll mute it out for a second. That's just an effect that comes straight out of the hip hop bit. So that's muted out. Really, really cool loop here. I don't know where I got it from some sample pack. Oh, Hit Kit, which is a brilliant sample pack. Hit Kit, look it up, really cool. Again, some claps, lots of claps actually. There's 4 clap layers to just make it sound really live. I kind of changed the delay on each track as well to fit the kind of to fit that. Yeah, there's sometimes with claps, obviously there's a bit of pre-recording before the actual clap sound starts, and I like it to be a bit random over that. Some people just like moving in the grid. I like to use the delay function in Ableton, so I can use a grid on each second or third and like keep it there. Yeah, some more hi-hats. There's lots of loops in that build-up. Some Brazilian kind of percussion. Feels like that's not ending like all these loops. Right. So this is loops and the sub bass. There's not that much bass because I find it important to like on the drop have as much bass as possible and to like kind of get an explosion in the sub as well. So there's a little bit of that. Then all the musical elements. Very, very compressed kind of OTT piano. I use the True Pianos a lot as a plugin, which is this. I like it. Good plugin, really good for stuff like this. Just an OTT plugin, an OTT preset in Ableton. Don't even know what that is. A heartbeat sound in Omnisphere. Then a more live sounding bass line in that as well. So these are the trumpets. Like they don't even sound like trumpets sometimes. They could be saxophone or like a combination of stuff. But it's very. It's like, yeah, The velocity obviously tries 3 or 4 different samples, so that's or 2. But I use the highest velocity to have that real kind of, kind of, what's the name for it? It's not aggressive, but it's quite in the mix. It's quite forward. Yeah. So it's 2 octaves, and at the end I used a little bit of harmonies just to like make it sound like a bit more interesting in my ears. So this is all quite straightforward, but then at some point I add like this harmony, which is literally just ba 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 ba. No. Very simple harmony. It is a combination of all these instruments, so trumpet, sax, and a combination of all together in Session Horns Pro, which is a really, really cool library in Contact. Really like it. I think it's part of the Complete series, if you call it that. I think it is. So that's one of the layers, and in the intro I only use this layer, but there's one other. There's one other layer that I use on the drop with extra trumpet sounds to like make it sound a little bit more wide. But this is it for the intro. So. Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy again. So yeah, I think that kind of covers the build-up. Right, just to give you an idea like on what layers I use with the trumpets, there's like a choir on top of it as well. So these are the layers. I think this is the Session Pro, like before. Then this is a layer, which is frozen. I think it's another Session Horns Pro one. But then there's this like little choir thing. I don't know when I chose it, but it kind of sounded Brazilian in a way, the way they sing. I don't know why, but it sounds good layered. Which is a preset in Omnisphere, which is one of my favorite sample libraries / plugins / workstations. You could literally build a whole tune in Omnisphere, I think. It's one of my favorite things to use. But it's a simple preset called Choirman Ass. So yeah, it's sometimes it's as easy as that. It's super dry. There's not many effects on that. It's just a really nice layer to give that extra kind of vibe behind the kind of a simple trumpet sound. Got some visitors. So yeah, I love layering stuff up. When it comes to drums or melodies or harmonies, I used to use every kind of melody in the same instrument to just like have more of a wider sound, but now I tend to like take each harmony and like get every harmony played by a different instrument, so it stacks up really nicely. So if you play a major chord, which you can't hear right now, if you play a major chord, I would get this played by a piano or sub bass, this played by silent, like a soft wave, this maybe by another piano, and then that by a trumpet or whatever. Like it depends on the song, but I find working like that is just really cool. It gives a lot of depth to your harmonies, and it especially if you start panning it around, it's just really strange. It does something magical. Like you get some harmonies on the left, some on the right, some in the middle, and like suddenly it sounds really alive and really full. And that's what I'm trying to do with like most of my songs anyway. So yeah, moving on. That was the trumpet lead sound. Under that is just again that really kind of over compressed piano sound that is very popular in house music right now, I think. It almost sounds like that, what's it called, M1, like that very kind of bass true pianos with just lots of like OTT compression on top of it. Another layer. in Omnisphere, there's a preset called cavaquinho, which is a four-string traditional Brazilian instrument. There we go, another Brazilian instrument, which I only found out about now, so I can't really take credit for that. This is a very, very cool organ sound in Omnisphere. I think it's Go to This Church. Yeah, it's called Go to This Church. Absolutely brilliant. So a Hammond with a vocal noise effect, great. It's very airy. I took away all the lows and just really made it like fill up the kind of higher harmonies in the track. Yeah, it's very summary. Silent, another layer. Very simple again. 5 saws, a little bit detuned. Nothing, no effects like whatsoever. Just really to fill up that kind of harmony again. Just lots and lots of layers. Then, okay, that's interesting. So, oh right, okay. So what I did there is something nobody should do. It's a very stupid move of mine. But basically, I've got 2 very high bass notes. They kind of hit too high. It's like the first sub note. It's not a great first sub note. It has to be a little bit deeper. So what I did, and I'm sure this is against all books, but I do it anyway, is just harmonize it with like a sub 1 octave lower. But I'm sure the phase would do something weird. But yeah, in the finished product, you can't really hear it that much, I think. If you go more technically, I'm sure Noisia would shoot me if I say this, but this is how I work, so yeah. I used another layer of sub bass for the first 2 notes, just an octave lower to, yeah, it works. It works on a big system, I think. There's better ways to do it, but that's how I did it. So that's the sub bass, both in silent, just as very simple. I'll show you a very simple sine. One sine, it should be faced the same way. So yeah, 1 sine wave, and that's my sub in this song. Mostly, I either use like a sine kind of recording of a cool synth for like a really full kind of colored sine for the sub. But sometimes I use a very simple sine like this, and this worked out for this sub. So that was all cool. Another kind of looped break there, which I got from a sample pack called Drum and Bass Loops. Drum and Bass Interface Rex, yeah. Cool, so after going through all the instruments and like the harmonies and the musical stuff, I'll go through the drums. So basically this is the drum group. Fairly non-complicated drum and bass kind of typical kick snare pattern with lots of layers, but you can't really hear all of them. They're just there to like fill everything up a little bit. The kick is just a sample. It's for kicks and snares. I've got this folder where I just save kicks and snares that I like and layers that I like. So this is a layer of probably like 2 or 3 kicks, just a sub. A top, but I can't show you because it's mastered already. And with snares the same. Like I start with a lot of like 909 stuff for snares, so you've got that kind of 200 hertz like bump and a bit of like high end on top of that. I think with kicks and snares and drums in general, I think it's the way I work. I don't tend to like get too much into detail until I've got the full kind of drum setup ready with all the loops, and until I know how it's going to sit in the mix. Because sometimes with the right kind of cymbals on top of a snare or something like mostly a snare, it sounds so much better than without all the loops and all the cymbals. And you would have worked on the snare and given it so much more high layers and like high as well. Like the cymbals kind of fill up for that. So I like to wait till I've got the full kind of drum setup ready till I start fine-tuning the kicks and the snares, basically. The kick has nothing under like, I don't know, maybe 90 or 80 hertz. It's quite like drum and bass has got like kicks with not that much stuff in it, typically. Snare the same, lots of kind of 200 hertz, the typical kind of rocky kind of 200 hertz bump on the snare. I like cowbells. Can never have enough cowbells, so that kind of changes a lot of producers do shuffles in between that kick and snare pattern, and I like cowbells, for example, or like other instruments that kind of replace that. There's like a first layer under there, second layer, like another kind of percussion kit standard in Ableton that I used to have in. Another snare layer. So that's what we've got now. Then I use Sylenth sometimes to kind of have like a high kind of white noise hit, like a hi-hat, like this. You can't really hear it that much in the mix, it's quite quiet, but the reverb, sometimes it gives a nice kind of a nice high element to it. There's some producers that like swear by noises, by white noise, pink noise, all that stuff to like kind of fill up their drums. Like Cameron Crooked, for example, use that a lot, I think, to kind of have that really short kind of attack and release on that sound, and it works really well for them. I use it to like fill up the drums a little bit when it's when the highs are really coming through the mix enough. So we've got that. This is like the kick, snare, and like some percussion layer. Then on top of that, there's a couple of breaks. This is like the two groups with like lots of like breaks and extra elements, which I'll go into now. It's again a superior drummer, great for like cymbals. I think great to great human feel to it. It's like you can't hear the samples ending. It really sounds like somebody's like hitting all the cymbals. I bounced it again, so I can't show you the plugin, but it's I keep the humanized like factor quite high up, so like it sounds like some hi-hats are like a bit higher in pitch or like a bit more to the left or the right. Another superior drummer, like a shuffling kind of hi-hat. Another hi-hat on the 8th. Here's the first break. Oh yeah, it's a really cool break. I mean, every sample pack has got so many cool breaks, but I like this one. I took out everything under a 790. It's probably a little bit too high. Probably do this. Another like open hi-hats. Very simple. I just change the pitch to like have a different sounding one. It's a lazy way around, I guess. Another superior drummer, more cymbals. Like you can never have enough cymbals in drum and bass. Sometimes I feel, especially if you're going for that rocky kind of feel rather than the more kind of rolling feel. So 3 or 4 layers of superior drummer cymbals, just to pan it around, have as much kind of stereo wave as possible with that. Sometimes I sample my own drums. This is drums for like from another song of my album, TNT. I sampled it. It was originally like 140 beats per minute. So I sped it up. Most of the times when I speed up beats or breaks, I use a reed pitch warp mode instead of the beats one, because it kind of keeps all the transients like intact. It's probably better to use it at this, but it's probably a bit too high up in the mix or something. I did it for a reason, I'm sure. But yeah, that's probably one of my tips in Ableton. If you can warp beats and if you don't like change the warp markers too much, I'd go for repitch mode instead of beats mode or complex or anything like that, just to have like the transients really sharp. I think for percussion it's really important, and you're not trying to most of the times you're not trying to like keep a melody or a root note intact anyway. It's all percussive stuff, so it doesn't matter with that kind of stuff. Another harmony trumpet. Sounds a bit like, I don't know what it sounds like. It sounds happy. So after that I got back into
Wherever she goes, I go, we go, flying
get the hip hop part, a little bit more harmonies this time, more than in the intro.
forever, but I'm down for the
Like
minute,
this.
so just
So I wonder what this sound is actually. It's like, again, Omnisphere, the woof sound. Oh, it's just another choir. So this, it's just a women's choir. It's just a very short note. Obviously, we're like a. Oh, I think I filtered down the whole group. Yeah. So there's a low pass on the whole group. On all the musical stuff, just for the build-up, I just used. I love using the EQ8 native plugin in Ableton. It does a trick for me most of the times. Unless you go into details for drum side, the Fab Filter plugins are like brilliant for that, I guess. But this is quite an old project as well. Like I've changed my way of working quite a bit since then, I think. But yeah, it still all works. There's this one extra layer right before the drop again, which is this. I think I've made more interesting melodies in the past, but it kind of gives an extra element before the drop. So then it's back into the drop, exactly. Kind of exactly the same thing, production-wise.
wherever she goes, I go, we go, flying over
So what's important when you work with a vocal that's kind of heavy in the mid-range, I tend, arrangement-wise, I tend to like only use the vocals when there's not too much happening instrumentally. So in this part, I took away quite a lot of harmonies, quite a lot of the trumpets, but to start with, all the organ stuff. It's only the piano in the background, which works with the vocal. So that doesn't make it too squashed. I think it's a good combination. Just piano, the highs of the piano, not that much mid. That's what the OTT does really well, and then the vocal in the mid, like really full. I'll just go into the master chain that I use for this one. So basically, for this track, the master chain is fairly simple. There's a lot. I love using the native plugins in Ableton. There's a couple of really good plugins that just do the trick, that keep my CPU down. I had to work on a Mac Pro for like most of my projects on this album anyway, because my laptop couldn't take it anymore. But it's annoying if a project gets that like heavy that you can't really play around with it anymore, or can't play like piano live anymore, I think. So I tend to bounce enough files to like still have enough memory and CPU left to like ever play with it. So the master chain is simple. I just duck it down 1 dB, probably because it was too loud, which I tend to do a lot. Then the EQ8 plugin is quite cool. They've got a side and mid setting. So for mids, I obviously for bass, for sub bass, I learned that you can't really spread it out too much. You have to keep that like right in the middle. Same with kicks, or like the sub layer of a kick anyway. So what this does basically is keep all the lows in the mids. Give it a small bump because I'm taking it out in the sides. Give a small bump. Again, there's probably more professional ways to do it, but for me this really works. For sides, I take everything out under 250, but slowly. It's not like a crazy curve. And again, I give a little bit of a boost around this kind of 4K probably, around that bit. I give a bit of a boost. I mean, for some projects I use much more complicated like equalizing plugins to like find real like problems and mixes. But with Brio it was quite easy. There wasn't any proper problems in the mix that we have to solve when mixing it down. So it was fairly easy. Multi-band compression. I mean, over here I use a Fab Filter Pro L as a compressor. Sometimes I use the Isotope suite, where you can do all this stuff in the suite, like the stereo imaging, the multi-band, even EQing. You do it all in the suite. For some projects I like it, some I don't. There's one here. I don't even know what this does. Oh, so yeah. In this chain, Ozone does some harmonic exciting, some stereo imaging, which I actually did over here a little bit already, but it's imaging. It's a little bit more. Sometimes I use a maximizer. Depends. Not on this project, because I'm using this plugin, the Pro L, which is a plugin I bought fairly recently. I know producers have been using it for ages, but I've only got into it recently. The whole bundle is amazing. You should definitely grab it. Saturn is an incredible plugin. It's really nice, like to visually kind of distort all these bands and really have that visual in front of you. It sounds brilliant. The Pro L as well. Really happy with it. And then at the end of my chain, I just like to have a look at like a Doroth, which is a Waves plugin, which just shows you the VU meter and the loudness of everything. Really simple, it's quite. For mixes, I like it when it's around -4 the loudness, sometimes -3. It depends on how club you want to go with a mix. For a radio mix like this is fine for me. It doesn't have to be squashed. The radio compression is going to do that for you anyway. So yeah, it's a very simple kind of mastering chain. I like to keep it simple. Basically, it's much more about melodies, harmonies, the way those instruments sound to me than it's about production or technical plugins for me personally. Yeah, for masters, like it depends. Most of the time, when I finish an album or finish a single, I'll do my own master and bounce like a pre-master version with like lots of headroom, so somebody can do another chain with it. I wouldn't say I'm a control freak, but I like to have control over my own masters, and especially when it comes to because we play with the band as well. I like the record to sound as close as possible to the way we play it live. So I like to know what's in the mastering chain and do it myself sometimes. I'm definitely not saying I'm a mastering engineer or I'm good at it. I just like the way it sounds, and I tested out on all these like different kind of systems. I tested out in cars. I tested out even listening to it on the phone. I tested out on my Sonos speakers inside, on like some other speakers. I've got some good monitors in here. The Grimm LS1s, they're quite fairly. They've always been quite honest. Yeah, I just try to listen to them at as many systems as possible. And even when we rehearse with the band or sound check, I always bring like an iPhone or like a USB, an USB stick to just see how it sounds on a big system as well. It's really hard to find that one system that kind of that is so honest that you know it's going to sound great on the other systems. You can't really find that one system, I think. So for me, it's a lot of trial and error, just going back and forth, playing it on different systems, going back, noting down what frequencies were like too loud or too harsh, and yeah, that seems to work for me. So that's the way I work. Yeah, the most important sound in the whole track, I forgot to mention.
Down for the minute, so just chill.
It's actually, when we first started playing this song, there was the moment where we did cheers with our shots on stage. Actually, it was quite fun. Again, so for to get from this track in Ableton to a live kind of playable version, there's a couple of things you need. First of all, you need musicians that are very good, because drum and bass is a hard genre to play. And then I'm lucky enough to have two of the best musicians I know that can play most of the melodies and all the drums that I program. I mean, our drummer Michael Shack is a machine. He'll play everything as binary as Ableton does it, almost. Like it's so close to the click. He's so used to that. And Babel, our keyboard player, is really good at playing all these like really fast melodies, like my older stuff, like Give and Take and Secret Agent, with all these like crazy synths. He's very good at playing those, so I got very lucky there. But the way I go from an Ableton project in studio like this into live is like a whole different aspect on a song. For Rio, for example, I'd probably keep a couple of like harmonic layers in the backing track. So we play the piano, the loud kind of chords, and maybe some organ. But mostly, there's still a lot of elements in the backing track. I'm honest about it. It's just to fill it up and keep that really kind of full live feeling to it, because there's only 3 of us on stage, and if there was more, we could have played all that. But again, it's very kind of quiet in the background, but it's important to make the track a little bit more full live, especially live. So what I do live is playing that. Where is it? Playing this very simple. The very simple trumpet lead, which at some point I want to try and start learning on an actual trumpet. But yeah, right now that's what I played, that lead sound. Babel is playing the keys with some extra harmonies under there. And Michael plays the kick snares, some hi-hats. But again, I keep some of the overheads, some of the cymbals from like Superior Drum. I keep that in the backing track just to give it that real full feel. If you listen to us, the band, play without any instruments, so just the backing track, on most of the tunes you'll only hear sub bass, maybe a little bit of shuffling, just stuff that isn't very interesting to do live for the drummer. He's got other stuff that is more important to do. So mostly those kind of loops, sub bass, maybe a couple of harmonic kind of elements again to make it fuller. But yeah, most of the stuff is all played live, and that's something I'm really proud of. Like there's lots of other bands that make it live a lot easier, which is easier, and I get jealous over it. And you do make mistakes if you play everything, but it's fun. It's important. So what I would do is just find like the layers of drums, the right kind of the overheads and some shuffles. Find them, bounce them into like one file, bounce them into a loops kind of file. Then try and bounce all the bass sounds. So you've got like one sub layer and bass layer. Actually, I played the bass line of the intro. This one. We do that live as well. So not all of the bass is triggered or whatever. This is played live as well. But then the sub bass on the drop, the simple sine bass, it just isn't that fun to play. There's more elements that are like more exciting and visually exciting to play. So yeah, I would bounce the sub bass, for example, for the drop, have that in a separate file, and then the vocals. So it's basically 4 files, so 8 channels that go to the front of house for backing track, and then all the instruments above that go to the front of house as well. So he's got like lots of room to play with it and play around with it. I think our front of house engineer really finds it important, for example, that like the effects, the kind of the rises and the crashes and all that, he needs control over that. So like on some systems when that's not, when there's a lot of noise or something, he tries to push it as much as possible, and sometimes he goes to like 8 dB louder or something, just for like stuff like that, just for like rises, and they really push it, take it away right before the first kick comes in, and that gives it that real live feel to it, I think. So what else can I say about it? Yeah, that's like 8 channels that go to the front of house out of the backing track computer, and all the rest is software synths or hardware synths or pianos and vocals. Hey guys, this was Netsky. I just explained how Rio worked in studio for me, and yeah, thanks so much for checking in. I hope it was I hope it was exciting for you, and yeah, I'll see you guys soon. My new album called 3 is out right now. Please let me know what you think about it on social medias, on Twitter, Facebook, everything, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.